How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello, America. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States. 877-973-7425 is the phone number. We've got some breaking news from the President of the United States at the White House. I'm going to play this clip for you. As I have told you before, we have been arming the Iranians. Well, the President just dropped some news that puts the arming of the Iranians in new light. He just had this at the White House. They are at the Easter egg roll. He's talking to reporters. You are going to hear the band played in the background, but the quality is good enough. You will be able to understand what the president's saying.
How is it taking care of the Iranian people if you're bombing?
Yeah, who you with? Who you with?
Yes.
Well, that's a radical left group of lunatics that you're with. Let me just tell you, very fair question. The Iranian people, when they don't hear bombs go off, they're upset. They want to hear bombs because they want to be free. And the only reason they're not out protesting, you know that, is because they were informed that if they protest, like the wrestler and his friends, if they protest, they will be shot immediately. And that's an edict, that's in writing. If they protest, if they go out in the streets, they will be immediately shot. If they don't have guns, we sent some guns, but the group that was supposed to give, which I said would happen to my people, I said it, I called it exactly. We sent guns, a lot of guns. They were supposed to go to the people so they could fight back against these thugs. You know what happened? The people that they sent them to kept them because they said, what a beautiful gun, I think I'll keep it. So I'm very upset with a certain group of people, and they're going to pay a big price for that. But the Iranian people will fight back as soon as they know they're not going to be shot and as soon as they can get weapons. If they had weapons, not many of them, if they had weapons that would go in the other way, and you know what would happen? Iran would give up in 2 seconds because they wouldn't be able to take it. But in Iran, they have absolutely no weaponry, and they've been told point blank, if you come out to the streets, you will be killed. As of this morning, and we have this on pretty good information, 45,000 protesters have been killed. Pretty bad.
So there you have it. We were sending arms to the Iranians and the Kurds. That's the group that we were running them through. I can tell you that was the group we were running them through because I've known for a while we were arming the Iranians. And, well, it turns out the Kurds have kept the guns. So it sounds like the president is still intending on arming the Iranians. Sounds very much like that. You give the people, remember, a majority of the Iranians are opposed to the Iranian regime. And you give them arms, it's going to be problematic for the Iranian regime. As for the Strait of Hormuz, I want to play this for you. This is from General Frank McKenzie, again, retired on Face the Nation.
Let me say, first of all, we do have the ability to open the strait should we choose to do it. And what you're seeing now are what I would call the precursor of the initial steps in such a campaign. You want to reduce Iran's ability to fire short-range rockets and missiles into the strait against warships. You want to take out their fast attack craft. Think of them as cigarette boats, large, powerful, outboard engined boats that can race out and get among ships and cause direct damage that way. What we're doing is we're going after all those vessels, and that's where A-10s, attack aircraft, attack helicopters, and other slow-moving, low-altitude platforms are so very effective. So we're in the process of removing those right now. At the same time, we're working to get rid of Iran's mine stockpile. The mines are very dangerous. They had thousands when the war began. I have no doubt we've significantly attrited them now. Of course, it doesn't take many mines to cause a significant blockage to world shipping. So all of that is underway right now. And you want to reduce those to a low level before you put your warships up there to actually sort of test the waters in that strait. I have no idea what Admiral Cooper's decision decision-making process is going to be for that. But I think we're well on the way to achieving those goals.
Can the strait be reopened with an air and naval campaign, or are you going to need ground troops?
I think it can be opened with an air and naval campaign, and the use of ground troops would probably be along the line of raids. And remember, a raid is an attack with a planned withdrawal, where you don't plan to stay. The one exception might be Karg Island. I know the president has talked about it. I think it has a unique place in Iranian culture because, one thing, if you seize it, you're holding Iranian soil. Secondly, it is the critical node through which all their oil supplies pass. By seizing it, you have the opportunity to cut that off, inflicting grievous damage on the Iranian economy, and yet with the opportunity perhaps to return it as part of a negotiation process. Further, you don't permanently damage the global economy by destroying the infrastructure. So I think Karg Island is a very lucrative target. I'm sure we're looking at it hard right now. I have no idea if we're going to choose to go up there.
That's Frank McKenzie. One last clip from him. Again, a useful rejoinder to a lot of the negativity that you are hearing in the media about the operation is actually pretty successful. And we're only 5 weeks into this.
They have the ability to inflict damage. They do not have the ability to gain mass effects. And by mass effects, I mean firing many, many dozens of rockets, missiles, or drones. I think that capability has been eroded steadily since this campaign began. And frankly, at about plus 30 days into this campaign, I think if you're at Central Command, you've got to be reasonably satisfied with where you are right now. In fact, Ed, when I was the CENTCOM commander, if you had given me this situation at plus 30 days, I would have rejected it as being too optimistic by far. So we've had good effect. Our effects are going to continue. It's going to be increasingly harder for them to launch missiles and rockets. We may not get to zero for a while, and I think there's still some time ahead, but everyone realizes that. But I think we're on track here. This campaign is moving very effectively, and I believe the pace will pick up every day.
You hearing that from a Democrat? David Brooks says we're losing. David Brooks says we're losing. Jake Auchincloss from the United States Congressman, we're losing. Tim Kaine, we're losing. The Democrats, we're losing. Here's a retired general saying, if you had told me that this was what it was going to be after 35 days, I'd say you were too optimistic. We're running a successful campaign, and the Democrats just want Donald Trump to lose. And so the wild thing is the conspiratorial thinking that's out there. So our 2 airmen were shot down and in southwest Iran, and they were south of Isfahan, where there's the nuclear reactor for their nuclear program, along with an Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps base. We rescued them. The one we were able to rescue same day, the other on Easter Sunday. And on social media, Democrats are arguing that we actually didn't rescue airmen, that was a ruse. We actually had a failed attack on Iran's nuclear infrastructure, that really we would not have wasted 2 planes to rescue 1 man. We clearly were trying to do something with the nuclear program. They simply can't fathom the truth. These are Democrats, by the way. Democrats. Meanwhile, you've got that idiot Joe Kent out there pushing Iranian propaganda that we were actively trying to kill our own airmen. These people are not right. They really do seem to hate the United States. Armin Rosen has a piece in the Free Press on this. Behold, the experts in media and academia who insist Iran is winning. For those wondering whether America is winning in Iran, most current assessments pale in relevance to William Shakespeare's Henry V. Toward the end of the play, the English king tallies the mind-boggling French losses at the 1415 Battle of Agincourt. In the end, they number more than 10,000, a royal fellowship of death, with the English losing a mere 29. While those numbers are a literary exaggeration, the historic record confirms the English won big at Agincourt, and they won because very few of their soldiers were killed, in sharp contrast to the enemy. Was ever known so great and little loss? Asked Henry. Today, if you were to consult much of the media, you'd get the impression that Iran is handling America a humiliating defeat. America lost, Iran won, Trump pooped the bed, moaned Jonathan Last of the Bulwark on April 2nd. Advantage Iran, blared The Economist on March 26th. Iran is winning the war, says Democratic Congressman Seth Moulton of Massachusetts on Friday, shortly after Iranian officials shot down 2 American planes. In the New York Times today, the guy who declared that Hamas was winning against Israel, what's his name now? We got an op-ed in the New York Times claiming that Iran is winning. Iran is going to come out of this some sort of superpower. This is just crazy to me that we've got so many people peddling this. Yep, Robert Pape. Robert Pape is the guy who, by the way, he's everywhere. I've had people email me and say, have you listened to this guy? This is troublesome if he's right. He's at the University of Chicago. He's the guy who declared Hamas the winner of the Israel-Hamas struggle. This is the headline. The war is turning Iran into a major world power. The professor of political science at the University of Chicago who studies military strategy and international security has been wrong about pretty much all military strategy and international security and is now in the pages of the New York Times declaring we're turning Iran into a global power. And they all keep parroting the same thing. Iran is getting rich off this. Iran is getting rich. Russia's getting rich. China's getting rich. I don't know if you know that the Chinese and the Russians are struggling because of what's happening, because Russia has now lost ground in Ukraine and its chief arms supplier, Iran, can't supply it arms. China is struggling because its chief oil supplier is struggling to supply it oil. Iran is struggling because their leaders keep dying. And yet we're told that they're all winning because these people hate the United States and they hate Donald Trump. And the reality is the United States is doing well. Again, let's play this again. This is Frank McKenzie, no dog in the fight, retired United States military expert, supposedly. Let me just play you his expertise here.
They have the ability to inflict damage. They do not have the ability to gain mass effects. And by mass effects, I mean firing many, many dozens of rockets, missiles, or drones. I think that capability has been eroded steadily since this campaign began. And frankly, at about plus 30 days into this campaign, I think if you're at Central Command, you've got to be reasonably satisfied with where you are right now. In fact, Ed, when I was the CENTCOM commander, if you had given me this situation at plus 30 days, I would have rejected it as being too optimistic by far. So we've had good effect. Our effects are going to continue. It's going to be increasingly harder for them to launch missiles and rockets. We may not get to zero for a while, and I think there's still some time ahead, but everyone realizes that. But I think we're on track here. This campaign is moving very effectively, and I believe the pace will pick up every day.
You don't hear that in the New York Times. You don't hear that on social media. You don't hear that. This is a retired general observing this, guy who was in charge of CENTCOM. Let's put these experts in perspective, ladies and gentlemen. I want to read for you a quote from the New York Times, December 8th, 1903. Quote, "To build a flying machine would require the combined and continuous efforts of mathematicians and mechanics for 1 million to 10 million years." That is the expert opinion consensus in the New York Times, December 8th, 1903. The expert consensus, it would take 1 to 10 million years for humanity to invent a flying machine. 9 days later, Orville and Wilbur Wright took off from Kitty Hawk. They went 120 feet in 12 seconds, and then they did it 3 more times, each time a little longer. 66 years later, the United States landed men on the moon. We're the only nation to have done that. The experts said that we would never take off. The experts questioned rocketry. When Goddard was building rockets, they questioned the feasibility of rockets and the ability to target where you wanted them to land in the 1930s. And then we put men on top of a rocket. And it is remarkable that we've got people out beyond the moon now, further than humanity has ever gone. And the experts have always consistently said the United States can't do these things. And now the experts are telling us that Iran is now a global power and the United States is declining and we are losing the war and Iran is getting rich. That's what the experts are saying. The actual people who are the experts, the actual generals and admirals, the people retired and on the inside who are looking, are marveling that we've accomplished so much in 35 days. In only 35 days, we've accomplished so much. And we've rescued 2 pilots who were shot down. And the left would rather posit conspiracy theories than acknowledge we're actually winning this thing. They simply don't want to give Donald Trump a win and will badmouth it as best they can, with the American media parroting the left because they simply not only hate Donald Trump, they hate the United States itself. I want to pause here before I move on to the jobs report, which you do need to hear about. And I want to just thank all of you. I have come to, just in full confession, not enjoy doing the Good Friday show, not because I don't enjoy it really, maybe poor choice of words. It just gets overwhelming, both emotionally and it's the one time of the year where I just suddenly lose my ability to think or focus on how to do a show. It's very odd. I was talking to a pastor this weekend who's like, I get sermon block, can't even prepare my Easter sermon every time I get to it. It's the hardest show of the year to do, and it seems so easy to engage in some conversations with different pastors. Stuff. The feedback I have gotten has been so wonderful, so kind from so many of you over the last 72 hours. I thank you tremendously for your for just the kind words that you have given and the notes you have sent and the prayers for so many of you, from so many of you. Thank you very, very much. I'm kind of overwhelmed. I always get feedback, and this year we're on, I guess, so many stations and so many listeners online as well. I've just been flooded with emails from people, and I want to acknowledge all of you. I didn't have a chance to email everybody back, but I want to thank you very much. Just thank you tremendously for your kind words, and appreciate you letting me do this. To those of you who are program directors on radio stations, thank you. I want to tell you about Perfectly Snug. They are my mattress topper, and they can be your mattress topper. They are very reasonably priced, and they are wonderful. So what are they? They're like air conditioning for your bed. They heat if you need heat. They also cool, in fact. So I hurt my back doing deadlifts 2 weeks ago, and I'm slowly recovering. It's just muscle strain. The form was great. I lifted more than I should have, and I got it done. But I've had the heater on, and it's like putting a heating pad on, but it also cools you down, particularly as summer is coming and things get warmed up. You can cool down, and this mattress topper is great. You've got 2 zones, so you and your partner can each do it differently. It works with an iPhone, works with Android, and it really does work. And if you go to perfectlysnug.com/Eric, you could save $280. Perfectlysnug.com/Eric. Get a great discount. Even Oprah Winfrey's been bragging about these things. It is very reasonable. It doesn't use water like some of them use. It is just phenomenal. Perfectlysnug.com/Eric. Get one of these for your bed. It'll change the way you sleep for the better. Hello and welcome. I have spoken to my daughter. She's in her hotel room now in Austria. I worry. Why pray when I can worry? Glad they're there. My son is recovering from his wisdom teeth extraction. It's been a weekend in the Erickson household. Family matters distracting us. It's been a weekend. It was a good Easter, but it's been something. All right. I gotta move on, because while everything was happening on Friday, we had airmen shot down in Iran. We had Good Friday, people going to church, getting ready for Easter. There's also, been a jobs report. Non-farm payrolls rose a seasonally adjusted 178,000 in March, a reversal from the 133,000 job decline in February and better than the estimate. They were estimating 59,000 jobs created, economists were, and job observers were. We got 178,000 instead. Unemployment is at 4.3%. It's lower. Unemployment has gone down. It was largely because from a sharp reduction in the labor force. A lot of people stepped out of the workforce. That has a lot to do with retirements, though. Wages rose less than expected. That is an impact, however, of tariffs. The annual increase was the lowest since May 2021. All the people saying, oh, you economists got tariffs wrong. No, one of the things that people were predicting about the tariffs was that it would slow wage growth, and wage growth has risen less. The average hourly earnings are up just 0.2% from 3.5% a year ago. Why? Because well, the tariffs, before the Supreme Court got rid of them all, where we were the president's tariffs policies, and wage growth has slowed. Why? Because a lot of companies, instead of raising prices sharply on products, just stopped paying people more money. Healthcare was responsible for a lot of the growth, which makes sense when you combine it with people stepping into retirement, an aging population. Construction also saw 26,000 people, and transportation and warehousing posted 21,000 jobs. The federal government actually lost 18,000 jobs. Financial activities lost 15,000 jobs. A lot of this continues to be an AI boom. The construction, a lot of it is AI data centers that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders want to get rid of. But there's something else happening, too. One of the talking points from politicians on both sides of the aisle, and I do need to highlight that in complete fairness, politicians on both sides of the aisle are lamenting the decline in the middle class in the United States. Republicans were lamenting the decline of the middle class from Joe Biden. The Democrats are lamenting the decline of the middle class from Donald Trump. Do you know why the middle class is declining? Anybody? Do you know why the middle class is declining? I know why the middle class is declining. It's because the middle class is getting rich. The middle class is declining because the middle class is becoming rich. It's from the New York Times. Randy Schilling went to public high school in Corpus Christi, Texas, and graduated from Texas A&M with a petroleum engineering degree. For the first decade of his career, he lived in an apartment and worried about paying for vacations. Then in his early 30s, he landed a job at a chemical plant that paid about 15% more plus bonuses, and life felt smoother. Around the same time, he bought a house on a golf course in the Houston suburb of Humble, Texas. Promotions and pay raises followed. He saved more than $3 million for retirement. Almost without realizing it, Schilling ascended into the upper middle class. I view myself as an average Joe. I don't have to have a fancy car. I don't have to have the greatest TV, said Schilling, who's 58. But when I want something, I go get it. America's middle class is becoming wealthier as more families scale the economic ladder into higher earning groups. New research shows that the ranks of the affluent have grown markedly over the last 50 years or so, while the lower rungs of the middle class have shrunk. In 2024, about 31% of Americans were part of the upper middle class, up from about 10% in 1979, according to a report released by the American Enterprise Institute. There is no single standard definition of middle class or upper middle class, and what counts as a hefty income in one city is paltry in another. The AEI report by Stephen Rose and Scott Winship classified a family of three earning $133,000 to $400,000 in 2024 dollars as upper middle class. Households earning more were characterized as rich. The analysis looked just at incomes, not assets such as stock or real estate. The rise in affluence is powering an American economy built on consumer spending and transforming the types of products and services companies offer. They tend to be the people buying $1,700 bassinets that rock their babies to sleep, artisanal food for their dogs, pricey gym memberships, luxury cruises, and spots on business class airplane cabins. There are also people who fret about the high cost of top colleges and might still feel strained by rising expenses. This is actually an incredibly great story. The middle class is on the rise. We have far more people being elevated out of poverty in this country. Capitalism is a good thing. Ironically, while this is happening, there is some additional news. There's a report out from Politico that a growing number of Democrats actually want socialism in the country. A growing number of Democrats. Sarah Eisen from CNBC noted this after hearing each description. 74% of likely Democratic voters said democratic socialism comes closest to their viewpoint, while only 16% say the same for capitalism. That's wild to me that we are in this situation with the Democrats embracing so openly now democratic socialism, which is actually anathema to the immigrant class. Think about that. Growing number of immigrants from Central and South America actually fled countries that were socialist to the United States, and they don't want to go back to socialism. They're actually opposed to democratic socialism at the time the Democrats are bringing it. This is from Holly Otterbein from Politico. The socialist brand is on the rise, according to recent polling, fueling the left flank of the Democratic Party. Shortly after Gallup released data showing Democrats and independents are cooling towards capitalism, a progressive organization is out with a poll finding that more than half of likely Democratic voters prefer socialist-aligned figures like Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Zoran Mamdani to establishment politicians like Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and Nancy Pelosi. Democratic voters also view elected officials who describe themselves as democratic socialists about as positively as those who identify themselves as Democrat and prefer democratic socialism to capitalism when written definitions of each are read aloud to them. Now, you will need to understand that this is from Democratic Socialists of America Fund, which is a left-wing organization funded in part with a Berlin-based Democratic Socialist group, this survey. Democratic voters are warming to socialism, but the ideology is toxic to Republicans and many independents, making it difficult for socialists to win in battlegrounds. Even within the Democratic Party, some voters are skeptical about the electability of Democratic Socialists in swing areas, which is something that Sanders and AOC have to find out. However, 53% of Democratic voters say they prefer politicians described as similar to Sanders, Ocasio-Cortez, and Mamdani, while 33% favored those similar to Schumer, Jeffries, and Pelosi. 14% didn't choose. Independents and Republicans view socialism negatively. The survey described capitalists as believing that the private sector, capitalists believe the private sector is best equipped to make improvements in Americans' lives. They generally support lower taxes, oppose government regulation of businesses, and want the private sector to own key industries like housing, healthcare, and utilities. Democratic socialists are defined as believing that the government should take a more active role to improve Americans' lives. They generally support higher taxes on corporations and high-income earners, support regulations that protect workers and consumers, and want more public ownership of key industries like housing, healthcare, and utilities. 74% of likely Democratic voters liked democratic socialism. 16% liked capitalism. A plurality of independents and a majority of Republicans preferred capitalism. Now, this is good for Democrats in primaries. For the left-leaning Democrats in primaries, going to have an easier time winning. It's real bad, though, when you get into the general election, because the same Democrats who can win the primaries are not winning general elections. I mean, the voters, by the way, don't particularly like the Democrats right now. Listen. Voters don't care for either party right now. It's true. But listen to the polling from Harry Inton on Democratic favorability right now.
Let's just take a look at this. Net favorability, party ahead at this point. Midterm years with the GOP president. In 2018, Dems were up by 12. In 2006 on net favorability, which party you like more? Dems are ahead by 18. Republicans are actually ahead on net favorability at this point by 5 points. So Democrats are just simply put running behind their previous benchmarks, and they need to be running well ahead of them if they want to take back the United States Senate.
You got that? This is very important to understand that Republicans are viewed more favorably by 5 points than Democrats right now, even as the president has sunk to an all-time low in popular approval rating. The president's party is viewed more favorably than the Democratic Party that in a war is rooting for the enemy. In a time of an economic turnabout, they're rooting for socialism. The middle class is shrinking because the middle class is becoming wealthy at a time the Democrats have gone to war with the wealthy. Think about that for a moment. The middle class is shrinking because people are moving up in income. And the Democrats have decided this is the appropriate time to go to war with the wealthy as the middle class is becoming wealthy. To anyone who covers politics or understands politics, you need to understand that that's not good politics for general elections. It may be fine politics for a primary, but when people don't like you, they don't want to vote for you. And remarkably, people don't particularly care for Donald Trump. Now, I know his voters do, and many of you do, but in general, the public doesn't care for Donald Trump. But they don't attribute their problems to Trump with the Republican Party. They kind of understand. Republicans and voters in general are smart enough to understand the unique dynamic of Donald Trump as a charismatic populist figure tied to the Republican Party. And they understand that behind the scenes, a lot of Republicans would do things different or say things different, but also they're going to stand behind the president. The problem for the Democrats is that they tied the cover-up of Joe Biden to the Democratic Party, and they tied the economic policies of Joe Biden to the Democratic Party. See, the economic policies of Donald Trump are never tied to the Republican Party because most Republicans don't like tariffs. Most Republicans are free trade. Most Republicans want free trade agreements around the world. Most Republicans are not tied to Donald Trump on these things. Now, you can say that's bad for the GOP overall because ultimately, at the end of the day, people like Donald Trump's economic policies. They like his more populist policies than the GOP. You can make that argument, I guess. The problem is that people really don't like the Democratic socialist policies, and they tie those to Joe Biden. They tie the cover-up of Joe Biden's mental decline to the Democratic Party. So Republicans aren't loved, but they're more loved than Democrats. Donald Trump is hated, but not hated as much as the Democrats. And the Republicans are not shackled to Donald Trump in the way that Democrats have been shackled to, for example, Joe Biden. Now, all of this matters ultimately because the Democrats haven't learned their lessons. People still really, really, really dislike the Democratic Party. And when the Democrats speak up, people are reminded how much they don't like the Democrats. Over to you, Stacey Abrams.
The 10 steps to authoritarianism. When you lose democracy and authoritarianism rises, it takes 10 steps. And step 7 is that you scapegoat the vulnerable. And in the United States, that's largely been targeted at immigrants and DEI. And if you do that component piece, if you can scapegoat these communities, we start becoming numb to our concerns about their humanity. And then step 9 is that we normalize state violence. I came through the airport from Dilley, and ICE agents are roaming the airport. And we're supposed to get used to that because the whole point is for us to forget what used to be. The way an authoritarian takes over a country is by convincing us that what we see is what we've always had, that what we are afraid of is necessary for our own benefit.
Yeah, you got that. Probably not the face and voice that Democrats need right now, arguing for DEI. Affirmative action is deeply unpopular, even among non-white communities. Arguing for DEI and the like is not as popular as claimed. And when the Democrats can't understand their own data, they are convinced the people are wrong. It just costs them further elections. The Republicans do have problems, though. Turnout is helping Democrats. In fact, in Georgia tomorrow is a special election to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene in Congress, and the Democrats actually have a really good shot at picking up a solid Republican district because the Republicans, they're not turning out. We'll get you to that story when we come back. Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. I want to play you this audio that's just come in. This is the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, talking about the amazing operation in Iran to rescue those pilots.
CIA executed a deception campaign to confuse the Iranians who were desperately hunting for our airmen. On Saturday morning, we achieved our primary objective by finding and providing confirmation that one of America's best and bravest was alive and concealed in a mountain crevice, still invisible to the enemy, but not to the CIA. That confirmation was relayed by Secretary Hegseth to the president, and the operation quickly moved to the execution phase. Following the successful exfiltration on Saturday night, our intelligence reflects that the Iranians were embarrassed and ultimately humiliated by the success of this audacious rescue mission.
As they should be. What a just great success story. We have now had one plane shot down by the Iranians over Iran. More Americans have been killed in Chicago than have been killed in this fight against Iran. We have lost very little of our planes, very few of our soldiers, sailors, and airmen. All a tragedy, but we haven't lost many. Thousands and thousands now of IRGC and Iranian military personnel and political leadership have been killed. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. We're having great success, and yet so many people are rooting for us to lose. Let me tell you about Incogni. Incogni would love to do business with you. If you go to incogni.com/Eric, incogni.com/ERICK, you can sign up with Incogni today, and they will protect you online. They will get rid of all of the data broker sites selling your information. They send them all takedown notices. They have taken my information off 324 sites. 324 sites have had my personal information taken down because of Incogni. Go to incogni.com/Eric. It's INCOGNI, incogni.com/Eric. Sign up with Incogni today and let Incogni take care of you. Get your information off the internet, protect your privacy, get 60% off incogni.com/Eric, incogni.com/ERICK.